Hi, this is Phil Shapiro. I just finished reading a really interesting book, Wired for Music, A Search for Health and Joy Through the Science of Sound by Adriana Barton. Adriana Barton is a musician and a newspaper reporter up in Canada. She covers the health beat. And this book was released here in 2022, at the end of 2022. And myself as a musician and an educator, I found it very interesting. I found it very thought-provoking. And let me tell you why. So here is Adriana Barton's website. This is a screenshot. I commend you to go take a look at it, sign up to get email alerts from her blog. And if you go under the events section of the website, scroll down about 2/3, I think, of the way on your right, you'll see a really interesting video interview with her. So this book is an interesting book in that it's both a personal memoir and a book about the science of music, the benefits of the science of the benefits of music for human beings, both for their emotional well-being and in lots of different ways. So Adriana is a cellist. In the first chapter, you hear about her lessons with cello, very formal lessons that were very rigorous, and she didn't like them that much, but they were sort of effective. And then she goes over here to talk about how music is a universal in all cultures. And she quotes this Yale University musicologist, Gary Tomlinson. He points out that a human culture devoid of music simply doesn't exist. So that's one of the strengths of this book, is that it is very thoroughly researched, and there's many references to people working in this field. And there's many references to books. So I work at a library, and you get extra points when you reference a book that I want to go read in your own book. That gives you bonus points. So Adriana gets a lot of bonus points. I saw a lot of very interesting books mentioned in this book. So here's her personal story. Her father, a Ukrainian named Yuri, grew up in a Polish village, and then he immigrated over to Canada, met her mom from Nova Scotia, and then sadly the dad passed away when Adriana's very young, and she's raised by her mother, and you get to learn some of that. Here's a quote I pulled from the book. How did humans get their groove? Henyak Henyan Honing, a professor of music cognition at the University of Amsterdam, explores this question in his remarkable book, The Evolving Animal Orchestra in Search of What Makes Us Musical. We might think our innate sense of timing comes from the thump-thump of a mother's heartbeat. That's not it. So that's interesting. Here's a book that I want to go and read. And there's an amusing reference, I think it's right within this chapter, to there's one animal, a seal, that is able to keep beat to disco music, and you can look it up on YouTube. Ronan the seal, R-O-N-A-N, Ronan the seal is keeping track to disco music. That's a video worth watching. I was going to bring it into this book review, but you should just go out and take a peek at that yourself. So then she's talking about her life. I think it was her mother who was moving around a lot. And then they started using music as therapy with special needs children. So that was really interesting to read about. This quote really caught my attention. Changes in the outer and middle ear helped our ancestors tune into each other's voices like never before. Over time, their brains began to pick out distinct pitches from all the sounds around them. This floors me. The separate tones we hear in music and speech are mental perceptions all in our head. In nature, there is no such thing as a middle C. And then she goes on with her memoir, where she is this cellist, classically trained cellist, but she'd like to get back to playing cello, And she realizes that cello is becoming a popular instrument in pop, jazz, and rock bands. So she puts an ad in the newspaper and she tells about it. That's pretty interesting to hear. I do believe the cello is a very uniquely interesting instrument. I love hearing it. I love hearing it in the modern context outside of classical music. And I commend you to look up on YouTube, look up cello, Bob Dylan, Don't Think Twice. There's quite a performance there on cello. So here she's talking about how music teachers and school teachers actually end up discouraging the musical talent of students. So instead of nurturing the weak ones, they abandon them, reinforcing the strong cultural belief that some people can't sing. This becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I do believe that this is true, that we don't do enough to find the musical talent within every human being. I've been doing that as part of my work. I work at a public library, but I also do volunteering out in the community, and I try and teach. The ukulele and the tenor guitar, 4-string instruments. Then she goes on here to lament. Few parents realize that enrolling small children in standard piano or violin lessons is like teaching them to read, starting with Shakespeare. I totally agree with this. Ethan Hine, a music education specialist in New York City, believes this approach starts at the wrong level of abstraction. I totally agree with this. So we need to rethink music education to make it much more enjoyable and less formal. This section of the book was really interesting. One morning, a jaw-dropping report about music caught my eye. Music releases mood-enhancing chemical in the brain. For the first time, brain imaging had uncovered the mechanism that explained why music might have an antidepressant effect. That is very, very interesting. And I would also make I would notice that listening to music is a different activity than making music. So making music and making music on your own or making music in a group, those are all three different things: listening to music, making music, and making music in a group. So Satori and Valerie Silimpour, a McGill graduate student, became the first to prove that music triggers dopamine in the brain. When music builds to a peak moment, say during a drawn-out drum roll, we get a surge of dopamine. That's real interesting. The renowned psychiatrist and trauma specialist Bessel van der Kolk emphasized this point in his trailblazing book, The Body Keeps Score. So here's another book that I want to go and read, which is excellent. It's I have an interest in the subject, and there's many, many references to excellent books within this book. So here she's talking about how music can help with people experiencing PTSD and other traumas. This was, I grabbed this screenshot from YouTube. This is about a young man, Cardivis, and he was in an accident, and he learns to play Bach using one hand. So I commend you go look this up. Cardivis plays Bach with one hand. Over here on the right side, with these words, everything clicked. My music training was almost guaranteed to induce a stress response, enough to dampen my immune system, along with my pleasure pathway. I loved music, loved the sound of the cello, but I almost never played with a sense of creative freedom or fun. Through all those years of persevering, I'd missed out on some of music's greatest gift. This realization hurt. I had done it all wrong. So this book is valuable for lots of different reasons, but one of the reasons is it suggests to everybody that there's better ways of teaching music than some of the formal ways we've done in the past. And here's another book. Anita Collins, an Australian music educator and author of The Music Advantage, How Music Helps Your Child Develop, Learn, and Thrive, believes music training plays a vital role in child development. Well, here's another book. I'm going to have to go read that. I work in a library. I read a lot of books. So, in theory, music lessons help children develop tolerance for failure. That's important. So here's my end of book review. You can send me email or follow me on Mastodon. That's my social media account. You can see my other book reviews. I have a Google site that has links to my other book reviews. I do book reviews in video form so that it reaches a wider audience than if I did text. Just try and imagine if I tried to do this particular book review in text, I might not have been able to convey as much as I did in this little video review, which admittedly takes a little extra effort, but I think it's worthwhile. And I want to leave you with a little story. I was reading the Washington Post newspaper, I think it was the early 1990s, and there was a young woman, I think in her 20s or 30s, she was hiking in the Shenandoah Mountains of Virginia, which is about a 2-hour drive from Washington, D.C., and she got stuck on a mountain at nighttime. And she had to try and survive through the whole night. It was a cold night until rescuers would find her in the morning. And she started singing Motown songs to herself. And the Motown music raised her spirits and probably also got her dancing a bit. And she was able to make it through that night on the mountain using music. And she intuitively knew that if she didn't do anything, she might have hypothermia. She might die on the mountain. And so she intuitively used music as a tool to help her survive until the next day. So I read that story and I noted it in my brain. I filed it away, not knowing that I would use it in a book review 25 years later. But there you have it. Ask your public library to buy a copy of this book. Ask your college or school library to buy a copy of this book. I found the book really interesting. And I look forward to reading the blog posts of Adriana Barton, because I've signed up for her emails about her upcoming blog posts. And check to see if she may be coming to your town. Maybe there's an author event. I'd say it's worth seeing if you can attend and telling other people to attend. This is Phil Shapiro.